Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LFC Roundtable podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything from the feeds. We have a bit of a short-handed episode tonight. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and we actually have Rob Cesternino here. He's got an announcement to make, so I'm going to throw it over to Rob real quick, and he's going to let you guys know what's going on.
Well, can't we say hi to Brent? I feel like that this is awkward.
Well, I guess we can.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
Don't leave him on the sideline, Taran.
He does that all the time. I mean, this is just like par for the course, Rob. You know what I mean? Throwing me under the bus. I get it. It's all good, Taran.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Live feed update.
All right. Rob, what's going on?
All right. Well, I just want to come on here. I don't normally get the opportunity to join the LFC Roundtable, although I would love to one day down the road. Maybe when there's only a couple people in the house and I could keep track of everything going on the live feeds. Be happy to come back. But I had some news that I wanted to share with you guys, and it's a bit of some disappointing news, unfortunately, to share tonight. But unfortunately, Alex Kidwell, who has done so much great work with us over the years, has resigned from RHAP. This is not a bit. It's not a joke. It's not like Brent, found the genie and said, "I wish Alex was out," and that was what happened here. No, I'm not joking around. In all seriousness, so Alex has resigned from RHAP at this time due to some matters of a personal nature. I had spoken with him over the weekend. He is doing fine. There's nothing wrong with his health or the health of a loved one. So no need to worry about him from that. No health concern to worry about there. And just, very disappointing news, and I'm sorry to report it like that, but we have just a couple of weeks left here in the Big Brother season. We are in very capable hands along the way, and I wish nothing but the best for Alex moving forward. And very obviously, disappointed is not even the right word to describe how I'm feeling. So let me know if you guys have any thing else if you feel like that there's anything that I have missed. But I do believe that he would appreciate some privacy at this time and not to be hounded as well. And that's pretty much it.
Right.
Yeah, we're definitely sad to see Alex go. He's been a great addition to this team for a very long time. It's definitely disappointing news, and yeah, I'll just echo what Rob said.
Also, I will say that Alex is also my friend, and I think that he's not dying, so he's still here, and he's going to watch Big Brother Canada 6 when it comes back. Hat tip to Rob Cesternino for that, and everybody in the community. He's going to have a good time watching that with us. But for now, he's stepping away, and that's too bad. I loved getting to know Alex because I didn't know him from Jesus when I met him when we all came together as the first incarnation of the LFC. And he's a sweet guy, and so it kind of sucks, but I wish him all the best, and I can't wait to talk to him soon.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to cast a pall over this podcast. See what I did there, Taran? But there'll be plenty of pall left to go. But no, I appreciate you guys letting me come on and mention this. And this was sort of a very recent development over the last couple of days. And, I had the opportunity to talk with him, and I think he's doing fine. So again, wish him nothing but the best moving forward.
I blame Matt myself. I just want to say it was all Matt's fault. Ever since Matt came on the season itself has gone downhill. And now look what's happened, Taran.
Yeah, it really is Matt's fault. He had a lot of hopes riding on Matt, and it's just the way it goes.
Well, I will say that if you are ultimately defeated by Alex's team in absentia, I will still celebrate on the sidelines and totally and mercilessly wreak havoc on you and your social media prowess, Taran.
Yeah.
Well,
I
unfortunately,
will leave it to you guys to figure out the ramifications of the draft and what. But from the last update I heard, I don't think that's a situation that we need to worry about.
Yeah, probably
yeah.
not.
Yeah, I think we're probably good.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll leave you guys tonight. Again, sorry to come in and be such a buzzkill here tonight, but I just wanted to pass along that news. And I will be back with our next Big Brother podcast after the episode on Wednesday night. We'll have Donnie Thompson with us on Wednesday, and have a great roundtable, guys.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
All right, so yes, we are going to have a roundtable that's actually just Brent and I. Unfortunately, Melissa is not available tonight, so we are a bit shorthanded at the moment. But we will carry on, and we will attempt to make the best of this. I know it's a bit of a downer to start the podcast on, but we will. You know, we're here. We've been carrying through this whole season. We can manage.
I know, Taran. We finally got what we wanted. We were kicking it around for a long time. We wanted the Brent and Taran show, and here it is.
There we go. Yeah, we actually had that idea once. Yeah,
I know, right? I like the Taran show better because I'm just a lazy son of a bitch, as I once told you.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to put this behind us. We're gonna get into everything that's happening on the feeds. I am here with Brent. Obviously, again, a bit of a downer, but we are here live every Monday night to recap everything that's going on in the feeds, and we have the chat room open on robhasawebsite.com if you want to chat with us. And then, of course, if you want to send in questions to me, you can do so on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. Send those to me. And then, you know, hey, if you like me and you want to see me on TV, the Las Vegas finals for American Ninja Warrior are airing right now. Set your DVRs. Look for me and Lita. We are in the crowd if you want to try to see us.
I will ask for everyone who's a fan of American Ninja Warrior, what obstacle and what stage are you behind? That's what I would like to know. Like, where will we be able to see you?
We were toward the end, so you know that like the half pipe kind of the ropey one and the warped wall. We're right a little bit past the warped wall behind the scenes, and then also if you get some of the interviews, we may be in the background of the sideline interviews.
All right,
they did those in front of us for a while, but we might have been a little too high up. Not sure, but check those out and check our podcast out. We're going to be recapping the Vegas finals. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've interviewed a few of the athletes along the way, and we're going to be splicing those in as they talk about their runs in Vegas, because we got a chance to talk about those when we interviewed them at the time. So lots of fun stuff to check out with American Ninja Warrior. But let's get into these Big Brother 19 live feeds. We start off the week, you know, of course, we see this HOH competition. Everyone throws it to Christmas. Christmas ends up putting Jason and Alex on the block. Paul wins the veto and has this very convoluted plan to use the veto on Alex. Josh is very much not on board with this idea. He fights Paul tooth and nail on it, but ultimately Paul goes through with the plan. He takes Alex off of the block, and Kevin has replaced her, and it seems as though the plan is in place. Jason will be going home this week, Brent.
Yes, and he does not know he is going home, which is always fun. I'm always here for a blind side. The one thing I wanted to make clear after last night's show, that I was on last night's show with Allie. Great show, by the way, if you haven't watched it, with Rob, obviously. But the little bit that Jason did about falling down in the nomination ceremony and then getting back up, that was not fake to my knowledge. Like, he was actually really surprised that his picture came up on the memory wall, and I think at that point he thought that there was a good chance that she was actually targeting him. He didn't know what was happening at that point. So even though the show kind of made it look like he was in on the joke, he wasn't in on the joke at the time, and he was definitely worried, as he should be, because as you said, Paul went through with his plan to take Alex down, put Kevin up as the ruse of a target, but that's not really the case. And frankly, I have to tell you, I have no sympathy for Jason in this instance, because how can he not see this? How can he think that Taran, would evict a guy like Kevin, who wins nothing, who can't do anything, who has basically no social game with the people that are currently in the house? I think he has a good social game with the people who are in jury. But, I mean, why would they do that? It just defies common sense. And my question was finally answered earlier today when Jason admitted, and I had never heard him say this explicit before, maybe you haven't, but I probably missed it, where he said that he's never watched the show before. He didn't even know Big Brother was still on anymore. And he's never ever been a fan of the show. And that's the guy that they cast on this season of Big Brother. And he's going to go out and he's not going to know what the heck happened.
Yeah, I mean, that was an unfortunate fact of Jason going in preseason. He didn't know much of the game. I do think he has some solid instincts, but obviously those have just been battered down by Alex in the house over and over until he gets to the point where he's not trusting his instincts at all, and he's trusting Alex explicitly and implicitly, and he's left in this position that's completely vulnerable. He's in a very bad spot, and it's unfortunate because this is sort of similar to what we saw with Paul last year, where Paul had some pretty good instincts in the game, but he didn't know the game at all. And he was in the house with a lot of vets. He ends up losing that game, I would say largely in part because he didn't know some of the things that could have really helped him in the game if he had been a fan of the show, had watched the show. And I think we're seeing something similar with Jason, where if Jason was more knowledgeable about the show, he wouldn't be listening to Alex. He trusts Alex because she is a person that is claiming to be a fan of the show. She's watched at least a few seasons, so he defers to her for information, and it's been completely hindering his game all season long.
Well, he's all about friendship. I don't know if you've heard, Taran, but he that's his whole franchise, Paul I'm talking about. So he's not going to screw us over. It's all about friendship, and why would he do that? He'd ruin his whole franchise, and his reputation amongst the fans would be totally and utterly ruined. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. That's my best impression of sarcastic Taran when I talk about that, by the way. The one person on the show who is not a fan, i.e. a super fan, is Josh. And I like some of the work that he did today. He didn't get too down about the fact that his plan, even though it was a terrible plan, of not using the veto, didn't go through, that Paul went ahead with his own plan, his own agenda. Christmas obviously went ahead with that same agenda. Josh was essentially outvoted this week as far as, what the alliance was going to do because he had no power. He had no power, and I have liked seeing him as the day has gone on today, and I'm sure I'm jumping ahead a little bit in your notes, but that Josh has just shut up a little bit about the fact that he's not getting his way. It's okay if he talks to us. I'm even okay if he talks to Christmas, because I don't see Christmas telling Paul everything that Josh says. But, openly questioning Paul in front of Paul, and that what he did last night about, going right up to Paul and saying, were you telling some people about Christmas and me? Did you divulge our secrets? Things like that. Obviously, that's going to get him evicted. Better today, and I liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, we basically chronicled the entire saga of Josh and Paul on the live feed update this morning. I did that with Lita. It basically went back and forth. The plan was, and this is the plan that they ultimately went through with, is Paul won the power of veto, and he is going to take Alex down off of the block so that he can convince her that he's still on her side. Then Kevin will be the replacement nominee because Alex and Jason think that Kevin is the real target, at which point Paul will actually vote Kevin out of the game along with Alex, and Raven and Josh will vote Jason out, which will result in a tie vote. Christmas will cast the deciding vote. She will get Jason out of the house. Then Paul is going to fake a fight with Josh and Christmas, where he's like, why did you guys do this? We should have gotten Kevin out. And then he can pretend that he is still completely with Alex. That way, if she wins the HOH, which he will try to get her to throw again because she still trusts him, but if she does win the HOH, he can direct her anger toward Kevin. Kevin will go home and everything will be right in the world.
Yes, and what Paul does not know is that a double eviction is coming on Thursday. So I feel like this is where the rubber meets the road for Paul's game. If he is able to snow Alex and get her out of the house on the same night that Jason goes out of the house, it will be a master stroke. It will be one of his finest moments. I already think him getting everybody to throw the HOH competition was one of his finest moments. But if he does some really good work in the double eviction, I think it could really, really help his chances at ultimately winning this game, because he's not going to have a lot of time. And something I wanted to bring up is, Rob, our boss, every once in a while has a smart thing that he says. And I'm not above re-examining my position and saying to myself, you know what, I think I was wrong here. And I have to say, I think I was wrong because I have been sort of beating the anti-Paul drum. I wanted anybody to take a shot at Paul. I wanted to get Paul out of the house, somebody basically to play for themselves. And Rob made a really good point insofar as Christmas and Josh go. Christmas is essentially crippled because she only has one working foot, basically. Josh hasn't really shown much of anything as far as being able to win anything. And thus, it appears, as Rob pointed out last night, that their best hope of getting to the end is actually with Paul, even though I've been wanting them to get rid of him. But if they get rid of Paul and leave people like Alex and Jason in the house, they're really screwed. I mean, they're not going to win anything. So I feel like they do need Paul as much as Paul needs them. And the one thing I wanted to say also, well, I'll let you respond to that. Are you with me that they need Paul to get to the end?
And I've been saying this as well, that I don't think they need him to get to the end necessarily, but I do think they need him for at least this vote and at least the next couple of weeks. I think that they definitely needed him for the double because they plan on taking Jason out. If they do take Jason out without Paul, I do believe Alex will go straight for them. She's the most likely person to win the HOH next to Paul. And if she wins that, she's going to target them. One of them will go home in the double. They do need Paul to keep them safe there. However, I think that once they get by the double, I think that's the time when you can cut Paul because Alex is gone, Jason is gone. Who are you left to compete against? Kevin and Raven. That leaves you in a pretty great spot. So I really feel like Final Five is the place to cut Paul.
There was one other thing, and I briefly touched on it last time, but I didn't have enough time to explain what I was talking about, and I hope the chat room can understand what I'm saying here. So let's take a look at, Josh's whole thing was he didn't want Paul to use the veto, but he wanted Paul to plant a flag and say, basically, I'm working with Christmas and Josh, or at least I'm working against you, Alex and Jason. I'm not going to use the veto. One of y'all is going to go home, okay? So sorry, I just got a text message from somebody asking me about Alex. Okay, I don't know anything, so nobody text us.
And can we repeat this? That look, let's respect Alex's privacy here. We don't need to go on a witch hunt about this. This is not Big Brother.
Yeah,
we're not on television.
Exactly. There's no shenanigans happening here, people. Like for real, he just stepped down. Okay, so what I wanted to say quickly is this. So Josh's plan was for Paul to at least openly target Alex and or Jason and not use the veto. I thought that was a terrible plan, and this is the reason why. For all of the reasons that you have articulated, eloquently, I might add, in that Paul can sort of direct Alex if she does win the HOH. Obviously, he can get her to try to throw it, but if she does win, he can get her to target Kevin. But in the worst case scenario, if she said, you know what? These are the people that sent Jason home. I'm going to go after them. If Paul openly does that, then he's part of that mix. I don't really think Alex would ever go after Paul, but let's say worst case scenario, she does decide to target two of the three. If Paul, remember, final six, double eviction. There are only 3 people voting. If Paul is off the block and Christmas and Josh are targeted by Alex because she's so pissed that they betrayed Jason, then Paul, in his prowess, he could win the veto, save one of them, and then those 2 people would have a majority to save the third person, just like we almost saw in BB17 when Julia could have had a chance to win the veto and save both both of the Oz twins, basically, and she screwed it up. Obviously, if Paul is off the block, he is the most capable person to win a veto, especially in a double eviction, and Christmas and Josh and him could all be safe, and somebody else could go home. So I feel like more than anything, like from best case scenario to worst case scenario, all of it was pointing to Paul needing, for the sake of all 3 of them, Paul needs to remain in the dark. I know Josh wants him to come out of the closet, so to speak, but there might have been a time for that. But now is not the time. At Final 6 and Final 5, I feel like it's okay for him to be in the closet. Don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like especially, and I mentioned this morning, like you really need to pick your shot if you're Josh. And I felt like this was not the fight. This was not the battle to fight because Paul had a lot of great points, and there's a reason why Christmas agreed with them. Because it really does make sense to go through with this move to make sure that all 3 of them are safe. Again, I feel like the move comes not to like convince Paul to not do a thing. The move comes to take Paul out of the game, just remove him entirely because he has way too much control. He is way too ingrained in this game. You cannot out-socialize him. You cannot out-strategize him. You need to just take him out. And I mentioned this morning that Steve Moses, the reason why he was successful was because he knew his limitations. He knew that he couldn't outmaneuver Vanessa. What he did was he just played up to her the whole time, and then the second he had the opportunity, he made his strike. He won the game. That's what Josh needs to do.
Yeah, that's what Josh needs to do. But to hear Josh tell it, he's not going to do that. And I'm with you after listening to your morning update show. I don't know what's going on with Josh. I don't know if he feels like he's indebted to Paul, because what I'm referring to is the fact that Josh has been talking to the feeders saying, he knows what Paul's doing. Josh is a super fan. He's seen this game before. He knows what's going on with the jury votes. And he needs to make sure that he is at least seen as a visible force in the game and not as a tool being used by somebody else who could not win at the end. But he's been telling us, like, at the same time while he's saying that, he's been saying, but I'm never going to betray Christmas and Paul. They are my number 1 and number 2. But once we get to the final 3, all bets are off. And he continually refers to Christmas as his number 1 and Paul as his number 2. So I do believe that if Josh were to win the final 3 HOH, he would cut Paul and take Christmas to the end. Girl, bye.
Yes, I do believe that is true, but it is unfortunate to see Josh talk about all of this. Now that Paul has used the veto, Josh has essentially said, you know what? It's fine. I pushed. I couldn't get Christmas on board. There's nothing that I can do. I'm going to stay loyal to Josh. Stay loyal to Paul. And I'm not going to turn on him. And it's unfortunate to hear this from Josh, because I really need him to turn on Paul. And I feel like if he waits until the final 3, it might be too late. But it is hard. It is hard to tell, because I can't tell what Paul's final 3 plans are anymore. He hasn't said it to us in a while. He talked a little bit about it this morning, or very early morning, at about 5 o'clock. He was talking to the cameras, and he referenced a final 3 situation where, like, maybe I wouldn't pull Christmas up to final 2. Maybe I've been talking about final 2 with Josh. So there might be a possibility that Paul is actually considering taking Josh and Christmas to the final 3. But
I think he is.
What he was exactly. That wasn't what he was planning before. The last time he talked to us about final 3, it was, I am cutting one of them before final 3. Now, when he's talking about it, he hasn't explicitly said it, so I don't want to say that this is definite, but it seems as though he's talking about them being in the final 3, which is very surprising to me.
Yeah, well, it's surprising to me, but I think he sees both of them as GOATs. And more than anything, I think that Paul fears getting second place more than he fears being evicted. I think that's something good we can talk about, because it seems to me that he wants at all costs to make sure he takes, in his eyes, 2 GOATs to the end. Now, I don't agree that Josh is a GOAT. I actually think Raven is a much bigger GOAT, but he has been beating the drum to these people about, we need to make sure, if Alex is safe, we get Raven out. So that's the plan to all 3 of them, that we're getting Raven out. He's not openly targeting Kevin. So I feel like that's a mistake. If he lets Raven go, like, let's say Alex wins HOH at final 6 and puts Kevin and Raven on the block, or Kevin and Josh on the block. If somehow something changes and Raven ends up on the block, I do feel like Raven might go home there.
Yeah, and he actually, we'll talk about it later when we talk about the plans for the double eviction. But yeah, there's definitely some like sketchiness going on with Paul's eviction order and what he's talking about with the final 3. I'm not exactly sure about his plans there. But again, let's talk about that a little bit later.
It's so frustrating too, because he's been genuinely honest. When you could take him for his word when he's talking to Christmas and Josh, because Christmas and Josh, for the longest time, up until maybe like a week or 2 ago, were his final 3. Like, they were his ride or dies. They were, I know he could go to the end with anybody, but ideally I think he wanted to go with Christmas and Josh for obvious reasons. But nowadays it's not quite so clear to me where's the truth and where's the lie. And it would be really good if Paul took a page out of Josh's book and talked to the feeders and really told us what's going on. And I do want to talk also about Josh, his talk where he was saying he wasn't going to turn against Paul. And I feel like that you had it right when you were saying, he wants to have it both ways, because he does know what Paul's up to, but I feel like he is worried about targeting someone as popular as Paul. Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Because again, like he says to the cameras that he trusts Paul, that he would never turn on Paul, in the very same way that he says it to Paul and Christmas. Like he's trying to convince us that he would never turn on Paul and that he would never betray Paul, or that he absolutely trusts Paul, which is a little strange. We could be reading into it, but it really does kind of seem like he's a little worried about having the audience turn on him. He wants to be, the fan favorite. And Paul has been telling him all season long, Josh, you are going to win America's favorite player, hands down. You've been working with me. You're such a character. I think that might be in Josh's head.
I mean, and it really shouldn't be. I can't stand it. I wish they would honestly ban America's Favorite Houseguest, because people spend way too much time. It's pocket change compared to what you could win. Why in the world would you give a damn about America's Favorite Houseguest? Seriously. And if Josh is the superfan that he claims to be, he should know that Steve Moses was never more popular when he cut Vanessa at the final 3, and everybody at home was going, yes, Queen, yes. Like, I mean, I know I was. So, if he knew anything, if he could remember any of his Big Brother history, he would know that the people that make the moves at the end are the people that everybody really just seems to root for and love. The people that make the dunderhead moves, like Cody taking Derek to the final 2, those are the people that live in infamy, and he doesn't want to be one of those people.
Yes, if we've learned anything from this podcast, Brent, it's that when you are cheering, everyone cheers along with you. Let
me ask you this. When Steve Moses cut Vanessa during Big Brother 17, were you not cheering for him, or were you actually a little bummed that probably the best player in the game wasn't going to win?
I actually had mixed feelings, because I was a huge Steve fan. I liked him better personally, but obviously I always root for the better player. So I was kind of rooting for Vanessa in that final competition. But the second Steve won, I was like, you got to do it, man. You got to do it.
Right.
And so I was happy. I was very happy for him, for sure. And I was very happy that that it came down to the top 2 players. That's not something that often happens. But yes. So let's talk about the heading into the double eviction. Obviously, Jason is going to be evicted here. There's not really any situation where that doesn't happen, right, Brent?
Yeah, somebody was asking me on Twitter earlier today, do you see any scenario where Jason does not go home this week? The short answer is no. The answer is no. Obviously, I know what they're thinking. They're thinking maybe some shenanigans could happen with the vote, because obviously they're planning a tie vote. If somebody accidentally votes the wrong way, like Alex did, then maybe I guess something could happen. But Alex was the only person who's ever done that, and she's currently planning already to vote to save Jason. So unless Raven or Josh openly make a mistake, I don't think that's going to happen. And by the way, Raven is very, very pissed right now because Jason has not asked for her vote. He basically said F Raven, where the Raven said that he said that. I don't know if he actually said that, but he doesn't care about her vote. He hasn't asked for her vote. And Josh, as you pointed out on the live update, was thinking about telling Jason that he was planning on voting against him, and Paul vetoed that idea. I would like Josh to keep his mouth shut, because I want that face that Jason gave us at the nomination ceremony. I want that face back when Julie says that it's a tie vote and Christmas gets up and evicts his ass. I need that. I mean, Taran, I've been so denied this season for the pleasures of Big Brother. I feel like they must give this to me.
Yeah, and there's also a little bit of dramatic irony, Christmas being the one to kick Jason out after he broke her foot. She did mention like, oh, it's not because of the foot, but it's a little bit funny. Right. Yeah, also, I tweeted this out earlier today, and it just immediately blew out. A very popular tweet. I said, I really want Kevin to win the double eviction and be the one to take Alex out of the game. I feel like that would be lovely to see.
That would be great. I actually really hope it's some sort of crapshoot competition in the HOH, because of 2 things. Number 1, Kevin could win. Number 2, it's not something that Paul can rig. I mean, if it's a crapshoot, then it's a crapshoot, and Paul can't really rig it. Paul could even accidentally win it himself, which would be glorious. I would love for it, even if it was a quiz competition, and it was like the Corey situation from Big Brother 18, where like everyone else says false and Paul says true, and Julie's like, after one question, congratulations, Paul, you're the new head of household. What is he going to do then? I would be here with my popcorn.
Yeah, I do think there's, as satisfying as it would be for Kevin to win and send Alex home after all the smack she's been talking about Kevin all week long, all season long. There, it would also be very entertaining to have Paul win the HOH and to see the look on Alex's face as Paul says, "Yeah, sorry, sit up on that block." Paul would be like, well, actually, I'm just using you as a pawn right now. And he'd try to spin it some way, but there'd definitely be, betrayed eyes.
Right, exactly. And you know what? I think every time we say, "Oh, Paul's going to get caught," there may even be a way for him to spin that, because if he puts two pawns up on the block like Kevin and Raven, let's say, I don't know. I mean, like if Raven wins the veto, he might need a pawn, and then he could say, "Oh, Christmas and Josh," but on the other hand, why would he trust Christmas and Josh again? I'm using air quotes here. Why would he trust, in Alex's eyes, Christmas and Josh again after they just got rid of Jason? I don't even think Alex would be here for that. But she might be dumb enough to fall for it.
Well, it honestly, it might be like go so fast that he's like, "Sorry, I have to use you as a pawn," and she won't even have time to think about it because she'd probably need at least a day to figure out that that's not like a good thing for her.
Right.
So coming into this double eviction, there's a few game plans here. Paul has mentioned to Christmas, this is the lineup. This is the order of operations here. We're going Alex and then Raven and then Kevin. And that's really surprising to me because Raven is such a valuable person for Paul. And basically the reason why he gave this list was because if it's a double eviction, if it's a special eviction, or if they don't have a chance to talk because they're going to do this fake fight, and so they can't be seen together for a little while, they just know what the game plan is without having to talk to each other. I really like this from Paul. It's almost like he watched our podcast from last season when we criticized the fake fight with Victor. This is what you need to do. You need to not hang out with the person after you fake a fight, not give this up so early. But that's his order here. And again, I really don't like this because it's much better for Paul, in my eyes, for Kevin to go before Raven at the very least. And really, Kevin should go and then Josh should go, or Josh should go and then Kevin should go.
Right, but he can't tell them that though. So I'm going to cut him a little slack here because obviously, they're the final three, so he has to give the order without them in it. So he's like, it's Alex and then it's Raven and then it's Kevin. I feel like he has to do that, Taran, because if he says to us with a straight face to Christmas and Josh, it needs to be Alex and then Kevin and then Raven. I feel like they might question that because Raven is certainly a capable competitor. And I know y'all are going to hate me for this. I'm going to get the hate mail right now. There is a part of me that is actually rooting for this bitch. I'm sorry. Rob told me not to call the women the bitch anymore, but I call everybody bitch. I call Paul bitch too. So I'm actually rooting for Raven a little bit, not a lot. So don't come for me. But I feel like she's crazy pants. I mean, like she's bananas. She's totally nuts and loony. But I kind of think it would be hilarious if she actually made a run for it. Obviously, the fly in the ointment is that she loves Paul and seems to be willing to lose to him. But today, when she was talking to the feeders, she talked to the feeders today. She talked about how much she needs this money. I know what she told Matthew, that she was willing to take Paul to the end and lose to him. I do not believe her that that's what she's going to do if she gets the chance. She goes to the final three, and she has a chance to cut Paul. She's going to cut him. You best believe. I think.
The chat room is just blowing up like, no, Brent, no. I was like, oh my God, they were so offended by you saying that. And then I was like, oh, it's because he said he was rooting for Raven. That's far more offensive.
Look, okay, here's the thing. Alex has taken the place of Raven, of all of my ire, okay? I know that you guys are mad at Raven, and she says things, and she has 5,000 diseases, and some people think she's a scam artist. Look, fine. But Alex is a horrible human being. She is vile, and the things that she said about Kevin, I just can't wave that away. And I feel like only one person can be the recipient of my hate currently. So because it's Alex, I can't summon the hate that I had for Raven previously. And I actually do kind of want to root for her if she kind of owns her greediness and like, look, I need the money. I don't care what I have to do to get the money. It's my money. I need it. Like, I think I could live with that.
Well, that raises an interesting point. Does Raven use the accent in her final two speech? We should take bets.
Well, the serious question that I wanted to ask you is, let's assume for the sake of argument that this is true, that he's being truthful with Christmas and Josh when he says this is the order of eviction. Do you think, Taran Armstrong, that this is a game-ending mistake for Paul to let Raven go home anywhere around Final 5 or sooner?
I think it's potentially game ending. I think the odds are probably still in his favor, but it's kind of like he gives up a sure thing for a like 66% thing. You know what I mean? He's really opening himself up for that situation where Josh wins that final HOH. It is a crapshoot and ends up taking Christmas. And there you go. You're out in third place, Paul. And the thing is, and you mentioned this on the show last night, that Paul seems to be a little bit worried about Raven's jury votes. He's talked to Christmas and Josh about this. So again, he hasn't talked to us about this. I don't know if he really fully believes this, but Christmas and Josh have been talking to him about like, yeah, we think Raven could possibly win in the end, and he's agreeing with them. And I think that's a really wrong read. I feel like she is the biggest goat in the house, but he's for some reason doesn't see that.
Yeah, but this is a reflection of the fact that he doesn't watch Big Brother and he doesn't watch other reality shows, and he's not aware of the fact that the whole need-based argument in front of a jury has never worked. I mean, it just has not. You go all the way back to like Twyla in Survivor 9 when, you know, she obviously needed the money. They even talked about that in the jury, and then they all voted against her anyway. I mean, obviously, I know there were other reasons, but if anyone ever needed the money, it was that woman, because she was working 3 jobs and was a single mom, and they still didn't give her the money. So if Paul knew anything about reality TV, I feel like he would know that the whole need-based argument never, ever holds any water with any jury of any magnitude, but it does seem like he is worried about it, though, and I think it could really screw up his game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a basic tenet of Big Brother. The very first season, you had a guy who was a doctor who was up against somebody who was not a doctor. And in his jury, questioning thing, he said, I'm just going to blow the money on jet skis and gold chains for my friends. And that was not a joke. He was very serious. He said, I'm not going to give any to charity. I'm going to blow it all. And that's what's going to happen. And they gave this guy the money. Of course, I'm talking about Dr. Will. This is Big Brother 101. If Paul had watched any season, I think he would know that this is the case. But of course, even being a veteran, he has not gone back and watched anything. So he is without that information.
And he obviously has not listened to your blockumentary. What's the name of it again?
Yes, the Big Brother 2 blockumentary. Big Brother 2 blockumentary.
Wasn't there a But First? Oh, But First.
But First, yeah.
But First. Yeah, I knew there was a name. Sorry, I kept looking for the name and I couldn't remember it. That's so funny, actually, when you did that, I was like, who are you talking about? I'm like, oh yeah, Dr. Will. And like, even though it's Dr. Will, like, I don't think of Will as a doctor, even though he is a very good one. I think of him like as a son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, he's the evil guy who got to the end and was the charming, you know, like robot with like no body hair and thinks he's like freakishly handsome. That's his hashtag on Instagram, is freakishly handsome. But like, I never really think of him as a physician proper. And you're right, he is. So I like, it kind of whoop right over my head.
Yes, and I'm being called out in the chat for saying the first season of Big Brother. I meant it when I said the first season of Big Brother. Big Brother 1 does not exist in my book.
Yeah, Big Brother 1
season.
is like a precursor. It's like it's a prequel, like in Star Wars, the trilogy. Those don't count. Okay,
Exactly.
like they're freaking terrible.
Exactly. You wouldn't say the first Star Wars movie is what was it? Phantom Menace. No,
Very
good. It's the other one.
It's
Number
A New
4.
Hope.
A New Hope. That was it. All right. So heading into this double eviction, it looks as though we're probably going to see Alex will be targeted. If Paul wins, if Josh wins, if Raven wins, Alex will be the target. Obviously, Kevin could win as well, and Alex would be the target. Then if Alex wins, we will see an interesting situation. It will depend on what Paul is able to convince Alex to do. Obviously, her main target will probably be Kevin. He is the easy scapegoat for this. Kevin flipped Josh and Christmas. You need to go after Kevin. He's the real threat. So Josh, we can almost be assured will be on the block, but who will sit next to Josh? Obviously, Paul will push for Raven, especially if he actually wants Raven gone before Kevin. But Does he then vote out Kevin to appease Alex for one more week? Or does he then vote out Raven? Or was the plan never to vote out Kevin before Raven? I don't know, but we'll find out, I guess.
I feel like that this double eviction, and I know we've had some real clunkers lately, but I do feel like this double eviction could be very, very fun. Obviously, we're going to get the first blind side unless somebody blows it, and Jason's going to go home. But secondly, I feel like no matter what happens, no matter who wins head of household, I feel like we could have some really, really good times. Even if somebody like Alex wins head of household and unbeknownst to her saves herself for at least another week, we could have something really interesting where she openly targets Kevin, puts up a pawn in, like, say, even Raven or something. Raven wins the veto. She ain't going to put up Paul. Obviously, Josh could go up on the block. Probably in that instance, Christmas would vote to save Josh and Paul would vote to save Josh. Okay, so I guess it's, but then Paul loses Kevin. And he doesn't want to lose Kevin until the final four. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what Paul does there. If two of his targets, his two main targets in Raven and Alex, are not eligible for eviction, and it's between Kevin, who can't do anything, and Josh, who can at least do a little bit more, what does Paul do? I feel like that also is very, very fun.
Yeah, and honestly, I think he should take a shot at Josh. I don't think he realizes this, but I think Josh, even though Josh is saying he'll never turn on Paul, he's saying that he still trusts Paul. Josh is the only person in that house that has expressed any sort of thing against Paul. Obviously, Kevin has kind of talked about it, but Kevin, as we see in the diary room, is just like, you know what? I'll just do whatever Paul says and see how it goes. And also, Kevin can't really win anything. So I would really honestly say I would take Kevin over Josh. The problem is then if Paul is involved in any way in taking Josh out, that sours Christmas. Christmas is not Alex. I don't think she would be okay with that. So it's a tricky situation.
I feel like he has to take Kevin out. I agree with you because there's no way for him to save it, and there's nowhere for him to hide either. That's the problem. There's only 3 people voting. Christmas is obviously going to vote to save Josh. Raven, oh gosh, that's tough. I don't know what Raven would do. And I don't think, but here's the thing though. I don't think Paul can chance what Raven would do. Paul would have to vote whatever way he felt like he needed to vote. He wouldn't be able to do what he's doing now, which is knowingly vote the wrong way and still get the result that he wants.
Well, I think Paul would just tell Raven what to do. And she'd probably do it.
But it's still a double eviction and things move fast. So
yeah.
But I guess you're right. And it doesn't move quite so fast where they can't talk. So I don't know.
Right. So honestly, the most likely situation here is that Alex goes home, which would be an exciting double eviction for me. And then there is a small chance that we could lose Kevin here, which would be kind of disappointing, I guess. But at the same time, when Kevin was put up on the block as a replacement, he spoke to the cameras and basically said, yeah, you know what? I don't care. I'm happy to go home. I'm happy to leave this place. Kevin has just really had the life beaten out of him, and it's kind of sad.
He really has. I didn't like seeing that, obviously, but I sort of understand where he's coming from. On the other hand, he was, he said that to us, true. But on the other hand, he was talking to Paul, and Paul was like, he's like, just don't worry. Don't ask questions. Just play dumb. Actually, I don't know if he said play dumb to Kevin, but he might have said this to Josh. But he's like, don't ask questions. Just, we got this. He's like, what, Alex isn't going to vote against Jason? And Paul's like, no more questions. No more questions. Like, stop talking. And I think that's really, it's a tightrope for Paul to work. Again, he's very lucky. These people are so dumb. Kevin, even though his life is on the line, is going to willingly go along with Paul's plan here and just not ask questions of anybody. I mean, maybe Kevin, I don't even know. Maybe Kevin doesn't even know what happens in a tie. I don't even know if he knows that, because he was thinking that, is all 3 people going to vote against Jason? Am I going to be safe? He doesn't even really realize that he only needs 2 people to vote against Jason plus the HOH tiebreaker, and he'll be okay. So, I don't know. I don't know, but it is disappointing that Kevin said that. But But people have said this in Big Brother before, where they're happy to go home and then they fight for their life in the game. I would say on balance that Kevin, even though I do love the guy, he doesn't really do anything for me in terms of strategy, because he just willingly listens to Paul every flipping time, and he can't win anything. So he's just Paul's tool, figuratively and literally, and thus I would kind of rather have somebody else who is at least willing to stab Paul in the back at the end when the time comes.
Yeah, and like here's the thing about Kevin, like you can imagine why he has gotten to this point. He is in this house, his closest allies were Alex, Jason, and Paul. Alex completely hates his guts now. She called him old, she called him leathery, she's called him all sorts of nasty things. She hates his guts.
Unspeakable. She's called him unspeakable things that I can't even repeat and won't repeat on this podcast. But she, you know what? All the flack that the Big Brother 15 people got for the things that they said, and rightfully so, I really feel like Alex should be held accountable for the things that she has said in the house. And when she comes out of the house, I feel like she should get some really tough questions. I know that people like Rob as a podcast, generally, I don't want to say we shy away from questions, but we like to keep it light and we don't want to give people the third degree. But I do feel like somewhere soon after she gets out, she needs to be called to the carpet for the things that she said about Kevin.
And she does it maliciously, and she does it like seriously. You know what I mean? Like this is not joking. This is not like part of the. She just hates him. She hates his guts. It's very upsetting.
Right.
So you got Alex, who is completely turned on you. You have Jason, your closest friend in the house. You've invited him to Thanksgiving countless times. He has turned his back on you. He is with Alex, the person that hates your guts, the person that's been so mean to you. He is essentially siding with her and saying, "I'm sorry, but we have to send you home, Kevin." And then you have Paul, the only person you have left, saying, "Don't talk to me. Keep your mouth shut. Just do exactly what I tell you to do." Kevin has nobody to turn to. He's got Christmas blowing up on him every 2 seconds about asking her about swimming and did you yell at me about making a sandwich? He's got Josh, yelling at him about swearing your kids. This guy has nobody, and everybody that he does have is telling him to shut his mouth. It's just like you can completely understand why he's demoralized.
I understand why he's demoralized. Boston Girl in the chat says, in Kevin's defense, how can he play the game? No one will speak to him, and if they do, they tell everyone everything that he says with embellishments. He's in a no-win situation. I will say, to hold Kevin accountable, Kevin got a little fast and loose with what he was saying the week that Cody was here, and that was the start of all of his problems. If he didn't go off and start freelancing on his own in a place that was really not appropriate to do, I mean, look, I want people to be independent. I want people to play the game, but that was not a good thing to do, and we all agreed on that on the podcast and really called him out for playing Big Brother badly in trying to use Cody to openly target everybody else and then say, but don't target me, Alex, Jason, or Paul. And you're basically telling him your entire alliance, Kevin. And that's when his game really started to go south with the majority of the house guests. So I feel like as much as the house guests are being horrible, and they are being horrible, Alex in particular, Raven in particular, but Kevin does need to be, he does need to own the fact that he has caused his displacement in the social order of the house was caused by moves of his own.
Yeah, he's put himself in the position that he's in. He is not the cause of the treatment he's received, if we can make that clarification. In the game, he made a lot of mistakes. He put himself here. He was somebody that put a lot of blame on Ramses earlier in the game. This is not out of his wheelhouse. The thing that is beyond the scope, the thing that I don't think Kevin would have ever done, is all of the nastiness that has gone on in terms of even just Paul telling him to shut his mouth is just come on, man.
Yeah, that's because Kevin has class. I mean, if you've seen anything about Kevin and the way he talks to Julie Chen when he goes to vote, I mean, it comes from a genuine place. He's not play acting for the cameras. He is a really genuine guy. Stephen Lennon in the chat says, but he tried, referring to Kevin. Yes, but Taran and I try to be funny every night, and it doesn't always work. So, I don't know if you get any points for that.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm always funny, Brent. Everybody always laughs at my jokes, and it's not always me.
Yeah. Sure.
So yes, again, going into this double eviction, we could theoretically lose Kevin, we could theoretically lose Raven, but most likely we're going to be losing Alex, and that will be pretty fun to watch, at least for me.
Yes, fun times.
Yes, and again, I'm pretty concerned about Paul's endgame plans, but he hasn't really talked to us directly in a little while. I really wish he would, because I want to know what he's thinking. It seems as though he may have changed his plans in terms of Christmas and Josh, but it's hard to know for sure. There's something that I want to bring up here about Raven. So I had this woman message me on Twitter, saying that she is somebody who has I believe has lived with gastroparesis, and she actually has written a book on the subject, and she finds that it's very unfortunate. I mean, it's great that it's gotten attention, but it's unfortunate that a lot of misinformation has come out about this disease. So I actually asked her to write me something so I could read it on the podcast to get some information out about this disease. So I'm just going to read it for you now. If you're curious about this, hopefully you'll find this interesting.
Yes, I would actually like to hear this, because we see Raven talk about this all the time, obviously, in her other diseases as well. I heard you and Lita on the podcast earlier today openly questioning whether or not it was a good thing that Raven was even on the show, because yes, gastroparesis has gotten a lot of attention because of Raven. On the other hand, she isn't maybe the best person to put a face on it, and so I feel like that this letter will be good for something here.
Yes. All right. So this is from Crystal Saltarelli. You can find her on Twitter at Crystal_CHC. She says, as a gastroparesis advocate and educator, as well as a person who struggled with severe gastroparesis for 12 years, I'm grateful for the opportunity to dispel some misinformation that has come up during the season of Big Brother. Gastroparesis is a very real, often debilitating medical condition that affects at least 5 million Americans to varying degrees. When somebody is diagnosed with GP, it means that their stomach does not empty food as quickly as it should. The symptoms, which may include nausea, pain, fullness, and or vomiting, are usually constant and often difficult to treat. Most people with GP tend to follow a management plan that includes medication, dietary changes, and lifestyle modifications. Surgical intervention and or artificial nutrition are also sometimes necessary in more severe cases. The gastric neurostimulator, which Raven has implanted, is not a cure but can help to reduce symptoms of nausea and vomiting. It typically needs to be replaced every 5 to 10 years, though very high settings may cause the battery to die more quickly. While gastroparesis is absolutely a life-altering condition, in the vast majority of cases, it is not a life-threatening condition. I wouldn't want anyone who has been diagnosed with this condition to watch the show and suddenly worry that their condition is terminal or become hopeless for their future. There is a great deal that can be done to help those with the condition, and research is ongoing. Anyone who wants to learn more about GP or donate to research efforts should visit aboutgastroparesis.org. And Crystal has written a book about gastroparesis if you want to check that out as well. So there's some information. I'm sorry if that was long and boring, but
it was very, very good. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I felt like, we have a platform. I want to get some accurate information out. If you couldn't stand, 30 seconds to a minute of me reading about gastroparesis.
No, I'm sure everybody was totally good. Yeah, it was great. You know what? I was thinking a little bit about this, okay? Raven has often said that it's a fatal disease, and if she doesn't have her pacemaker, she would die. I guess here's the thing. It's probably a fatal disease insofar as diabetes type 2 is a fatal disease. Now, we have treatment for diabetes type 2, but left to its own devices, if just allowed to take its normal course, something like that could become fatal for somebody if not treated. So I guess in this way, when Raven talks about GP as being, for her specifically, a fatal disease, I feel like that maybe she's not lying. And again, I'm not coming to the defense of Raven. I'm just trying to get in her head a little bit, even though that's a scary place to be. She's maybe is thinking that if I don't have this and I'm not treated, then it is a fatal disease for me. And I guess that's probably true. But given the current circumstances with her pacemaker and, advances in science, I feel like that it's genuinely not if you sort of take care of yourself. And that's why she gets the flack that she does, because she uses that terminal and fatal word very loosely. And I feel like that people most polite society reserves those words for diseases where even with all the treatment in the world, you're still going to die. And her disease does not appear to be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't want to speculate too much about what's true and what's not. But if I had to guess, and this is pure speculation, obviously she has this condition. Her mom had it. I think it's just, the idea that she is terminal, the idea that this could be a fatal disease to her has become part of her identity. And I think that is something that obviously manifests itself in the way that she is on the show. Where she
but I have to call Raven out, though. I know you say you don't want to speculate. Okay, let's let's not speculate then. Let's look at what happened on the feeds. She says crazy things like she can't eat any meat. She can't eat any red meat. And then she goes and eats beef jerky and taco meat and stuffs her face. Okay. She says all, and that's just one of many, 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 many things that Raven has said about her diet and what will kill her and what will cause her to have to go to the hospital and blah, 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 blah. And then she goes and does basically the same thing. The house guests are at least aware of Raven and her tall tales, let's call them. So I feel like it's not outside of bounds for us to at least call her to the carpet for that.
Oh, right. And I'm completely on board with half of what she says is nonsense. I meant more just speculating as to why she lies, what is going on in her brain that makes her so, attention seeking and say these things that sound really ridiculous. And I really do think it's just, it's become part of her identity. I think that's just,
but something that's not part of her identity is that her mom survived being struck by lightning and is a track star and
right.
that Raven was training for the Olympics, and she has family members who are on the Titanic. And that's just a small piece of the list, y'all.
I'm trying to psychoanalyze here. I feel like she was the center of attention because she has this disease, and I feel like that's what started all of this. That's all I'm saying. I'm trying to be an armchair psychologist.
You know what? I can speak to that too, because when I went through addiction and I realized I was an addict, you start to wear your disease as a badge of honor, especially if you are someone like me who is beaten it or is beating it on a daily basis. And there were a couple years where I basically introduced myself to people as, hi, I'm Brent Wolgamott, recovering addict. You know what I mean? So, but then you grow out of it as life moves on. And I don't feel like the Ravens ever gotten to that point.
No, I don't think so either. And I think that's probably because it's often reinforced by her environment. And that's what I'll say about that. So there we go. That's the Raven talk. Happy to give out some information about that. If anything that we can do to turn this into more of a positive for this disease and anything like that, grateful to have the opportunity. But let's do this stock watch. And it's a 2-person stock watch tonight. We'll start with Paul. How do we feel about Paul's game this week, Brent?
I don't know what you're laughing at. I'm looking for the chat room. There's there was something funny. How do we feel about Paul's game? I feel like I feel great about Paul's game, and I agreed with what Rob said last night. I'm all in for Paul. It's going to be fun if somebody cuts him, but if Paul does get to the end, I think it's going to be very, very fun to watch him win and get the win that, frankly, I thought he deserved last season. I keep reminding myself how upset I was when Davon's vote came out of the key box last year. So I'm trying to sort of live in that moment. And if I could go back in time to that moment and say, Brent, I know you're pissed right now, but this guy who you've been rooting for all season, he's going to get to the end of next season and win the game going away. How would you feel about that? And I feel like at the time I would have been like, you know what? And I feel like the fans at the time would have been like, yes, because everybody felt like Paul got robbed of his win last season. And thus, I feel like if you live in that moment, come live in that moment with me, y'all, and you'll feel better.
Yes. So
what are you laughing at? Can you share us? Okay.
I laughed because I mean my light turned off. I think what happened was I mentioned a certain person, and this person is known for coming at people that talk about her daughter, and maybe my lights were hacked into or something.
Okay. Very, very fun. She has been very quiet lately. Maybe the chat room can tell me, but I have not. Raven's mom was all aflutter for the first 5 weeks of the game, and ever since ever since the show itself started openly mocking Raven, and then ever since the Titanic discussion happened, her mom, girl, where are you? Because we don't see you.
Yeah, I think they finally realized the correct thing to do is to just leave, just
lock it down,
exit through the back door there, and keep everything locked down. All right, so Paul. Very interesting case study here. This is what happens, I think, when you bring somebody back, especially in these circumstances. They are not going to be as popular. But, again, doing a great job here on this season. Hard not to buy Paul.
Hard not to buy Paul. Of course, I'm buying Paul. And I reiterate again that I cannot stand Paul when he talks about, woe is me, you know, they threw me in here with a bunch of newbies. I'm the only vet. I have this massive target on my back. I have to fight and claw each flipping week just to try to stay in the game, because that sounds terrible. And none of us are buying that. And we see how he's rigging these HOH competitions, sometimes even rigging the vetoes to try to get the result that he wants. I do agree that he's doing a lot of work, but in no way, again, Taran, there have been multiple weeks back to back to back where even if Paul was placed on the block, there were not votes to get rid of him. There was no feasible way to get Paul out of the house since, like, I don't even remember when. I don't think maybe ever all season long. Was there ever a point?
I don't think there has been a point where you can definitively say they could have gotten Paul out. I mean, I guess actually when we think about Jessica's HOH, if she had put Paul up against Alex, there was a decent chance that Paul could have gone home there.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, with the amount of control Paul has shown throughout the game, you got to assume he probably would have weaseled his way out of it.
Yeah, but that would have been fun to see, though. And we were I know she almost used the veto and almost put Alex up, and I wish she had for Ramsey's sake, obviously. But even if she had gone a step further and openly targeted Paul, but I don't think that it really set in for Jessica and Cody how much control Paul had until after they were bamboozled on the Josh vote and Ramsey's went home. And by then it was too late.
Yeah. And like you might say, like if Paul hadn't had the pendant of protection and Cody had actually done the correct thing and gotten his alliance on board beforehand, maybe he had a chance to take Paul out there. But that's a lot of ifs at that point.
If Megan hadn't quit the game, girl, I'm looking at you.
Well, that then Paul wouldn't have ever even been in danger at all, because Megan just would have gone home. So let's talk about Alex. Certainly on the decline here. Hard to see her even making it to the end at this point, right, Brent?
She's going to have to win out, and the problem is that I think that she doesn't think she has to. She might even throw this upcoming HOH, which would obviously be just catastrophic. I mean, she deserves to be laughed at if she actually throws this HOH. I am still very pissed at the show for not showing any of bad Alex at this point. It's all fun and cutesy with the cat ears and the funny comments in the diary room. There is no truth to that version of Alex. That Alex disappeared like 4 freaking weeks ago, okay? All we've heard for the last 3 to 4 weeks is all the horrible things that she said about Kevin, her general irritable disposition in the house, and I really wish that the show would show it. But the problem is that we're coming up on a double eviction. She's the most likely person to go home, and thus, if we don't see anything on Wednesday's show, we're sure as hell not going to see it on Thursday, and she could be out of the house. So I'm kind of irritated about that, and I hope that the chat room shares my irritation with it.
Yes. We actually had a question about this. Lindsay asked, do you think CBS will show any of the awful comments Alex has made about Kevin? Why is she getting such a cutesy edit? And how can we get her booed?
Look, Matt wasn't booed. So y'all hang it up about the booing. No one's going to boo Alex when she walks out the doors. If we couldn't, I even tweeted about people who went to the taping to ignore what production said and openly boo Matt. The closest that we got was the Houseguest noticed that the audience was relatively quiet for Matt, but there were no boos there. So there's no way that Alex is going to be booed. I think that the best that we can hope for is that she gets read the riot act when she gets out of jury and back into the real world. I don't understand why the show won't show more of what I see as the real Alex, but here's the problem. The show, as Rob points out, doesn't really have a whole lot of heroes. I mean, you got Crazy Raven, Christmas, I don't know what's going on with her. Half the time she can't compete. Josh is certainly one of the heroes of the story. I guess Paul is, but Kevin can't win anything. I feel like they want to have one strong female competitor, and Alex certainly is the only option that they really have right now. And I feel like that the Big Brother likes to paint with broad brushes. Like if you're the villain, you're the villain. If you're the hero, you're the hero. There's not a lot of subtlety, okay? And thus, I feel like it's very hard for a show like Big Brother, who generally wants people to root for people who are in the game, to show the true colors of someone like Alex, because if they do, the audience is sort of left thinking, okay, what do I think of this person? I mean, do I like them? Do I not? Because it just confuses the matter. I feel like that's why I feel like more than anything, Taran, that's why things get whitewashed by the show, because they're trying to keep the narrative as clean as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I understand the frustration from the live feed watchers' perspective, because I think in many ways, like, we want the casual viewers to be like dragged down to the level that we are, right? Like, we're so frustrated at the behavior in the house, and it's very upsetting to us, and we want everyone to be down in this pit of misery with us. But the show wants to keep the casual viewers. They want to spare them those details. They want to, like, they obviously, Big Brother does not want to be an unpleasant show, so they don't want people to be frustrated. They don't want people to be turned off.
Right.
So as much as we want that misery to be shared, obviously the producers are not in on that.
Right, exactly. Go back to Big Brother 15. I mean, the show did not show what was really happening in the house for like 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, it had to become a national story for Julie Chen to even bring it up on the talk. I mean, that's the links that the show would go to hide stuff from the mass audience watching the show. So you're like barking up the wrong tree. I guess like I need to preach a little to myself, because I should know better that they're not going to show what's going on with Alex, but it does still annoy me.
Yes, Mom Shell in the chat pointed out that they saw me on American Enjoyer just now, so check it out.
Excellent. I can't wait to watch it. I'm taping it right now.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I mean, everyone knows, if you've heard me talk about this before, obviously I'm never a fan of the booing. However, I would say I'd be okay with, like, I'd like Alex to come out to like nothing,
like English clapping, like
just like two people clapping, like just very, very little.
Oh yes, but Alex said she had a dream earlier today that she woke up and saw she was out of the house and she had no Instagram followers. Everybody had deserted her, and Josh assured her that they are very, very popular, one of the best casts in the history of the show, and I just can't wait to see. And when that's the thing, we're not going to get to see stuff like that. So if Rob gets to go to the backyard like he did last season, I think it'll be very, very fun if he updates Alex on her Instagram account, because I can't wait for that face.
Yeah, Josh also reassured Jason that he's sure that everyone at home gets his weird sense of humor, and surely there's no Josh doesn't have his finger on the pulse here. Yeah, so I also had it on good authority that the audience struggled not to laugh at Matt during his interview. So that's pretty interesting. I think that would have been fun if they had laughed at him when he was talking.
Right? When he was like, "You guys saw it? Like, she's an amazing." What did she say? She's an amazing girl. I don't know what he said, but
yeah, she's like the sweetest, most amazing. Man. And then he'd be thinking about it the whole way to Jerry. Like, were they laughing because that was wrong, or did I say something funny? I don't. That's
the other person I can't wait to get out of the house. I mean, I would like to take bets from the chat room. Over under on number of days that Matt claims he is still with Raven.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be 3 days.
It's going to be
yes.
It's going to be a huge shock. I mean, obviously he thinks she is America's sweetheart. He thinks that he is the hero who is like being with the terminally ill girl that is such a sweetheart and that everyone loves. When he gets out of the house and like sees that there's a dramatic shift in his perception, who knows what that does. But it's going to be hard. I can tell you that, Matt.
He's going to move on quickly. He's going to be like he's going to hoping he's like James Ryan.
James Ryan's been hanging out with Jessica.
I saw.
Yeah.
Lucky him and lucky her. They are both, and I saw he was also with Jackie as well. So again, I'm looking at those 3 people. I was like, that really takes me back to Big Brother when people actually played the game for themselves. You know, like, oh gosh, that would be great to have people like that in the house. But instead, we're stuck with these losers.
All right, so we're both selling on Alex here, right?
Selling, sell.
All right, then we have Jason. We've talked a lot about Jason's game this week. Obviously, he's out the door here.
It's like there's not even a sell option at this point. Like there's no market for anybody to buy what we're selling.
I listened to the Patron cast. If you're a patron of Rob as a podcast, you have access to the Patron cast where people come on and talk to Rob about all sorts of things. And he mentioned that he feels like the stock watch needs an update. And I was like, hey, I said that first. You can't just claim this idea like you thought of this, and I said
exactly. I concur. I would like for people to think about this in the chat room and tweet us different ways for us to, something basically a bit or a segment that we can go to every week for Big Brother. Obviously, Big Brother Canada and for as well, so we could try it out then. But the stock watch is fun, and I mean, it's more manageable now that there's only like 7 people left in the house. But I feel like there is a better way, and like I have often said, I often forget what I did the previous week anyway, so I really don't know. I'm looking for a better option. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I've got some great ideas from people that I may implement. Obviously, though, a lot of them, especially with a stock watch kind of thing, very complicated. I don't want to like make it so nobody understands what's happening without the spreadsheet in front of them. So
Right.
if you have like simple ideas, that's the best way.
I would like it needs to have a big board and a buzzer. As long as we have that, I think we're good.
All right. So moving on, let's talk about Kevin. Kevin, who appears to be ahead of Raven in terms of staying in the house. Raven will potentially go before him, but he'll need to win some competitions if he wants to make it to the end. However, if he magically wins like 2 competitions, all of a sudden he's in the final 2 and he wins the game, right, Brent?
Yeah, and if Dimitri and Ika could have won 2 competitions, or Cass and Tim could have won 2, I mean, like, honey, come on. Like, this ain't happening. Sell Kevin. I love Kevin. If he actually made it to the end, he might have a viable chance to win. In fact, I think he probably would win the game if he got to the end. But no one's going to let him anywhere close. Even if he magically pulls out a win, which, again, the only way he could magically pull out a win is if it was some sort of luck-based thing that he sort of walked into. But there's no competitions at the end of the game that are like that.
Yeah, I mean, really, he just needs to be better at studying and get these quiz, because this quiz competitions he should be able to do them. There's nothing physical about them, although there are some physical like vetoes and such stuff.
I will say this, not to interrupt you, but his best option, I feel like, would be to openly try to get Paul to distrust Josh and Christmas. If he could do that, then I feel like Paul would look at Kevin as more of a viable, I don't want to say ride or die, but at least someone he's willing to keep in the game as a number. But that's not even, I don't think Kevin's going to do that. I feel like he should. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll surprise me. Final 5, Final 4. Maybe he does create some drama between Paul, Christmas, and Josh. We'll see. But I'm going to sell Kevin for now.
Yeah, I mean, Sam in the chat points out Final 4 HOH is usually true-false, so can't he win that one?
That's very true.
Yeah, it's possible, and if he wins that Final 4, then he's just and Christmas is in the Final 3. He could theoretically beat Christmas in one of those first 2 competitions, and then it's a crapshoot for Final 3. So it is theoretically possible.
It's theoretically possible. I wanted, if anybody can remember what I think the last 2 seasons of Final 4 HOH have not been the old before and after or true and false. So if anybody can remember what those competitions were, I think that they were a little bit more involved than just A or B, basically. Weren't they?
I feel like competitions are like my weakest area of knowledge.
Okay.
We really need Kevin Martin to be on the LFC to help us out with just what was this competition? Yeah,
the chat room will tell us.
Yes, hopefully.
Yes.
But yeah, I like I said, theoretically this is possible, but probably not particularly likely.
I know what it is. It was the what's the bleep. So you had to remember,
Yes.
yeah, they had what's the bleep because Paul won it, and then they had the days competition with the baseball for the Final 4 veto. So, but all Kevin would need to win is HOH.
Yeah, and what the bleep is like kind of crapshooty, right? Like you gotta just like remember quotes, which is
and I think it's A or B. Like I think they give you 2 choices to finish the statement, and so maybe he could win something like that.
Yeah. All right. So in the favor of not selling everyone except for like Paul and maybe Josh, I'll hold on Kevin. I think there's an outside chance here. I don't want to sell him quite yet.
Well, you're going to be losing money on that hold, I'll tell you.
I'm sure. All right, so let's move on to Josh. Man, I was feeling kind of good about Josh, and then kind of bad about Josh, and now just kind of like about Josh, because he's expressed, I'm a fan of this game. I know what Paul is doing. I know that I can't take him to the end. And then he goes and he exposes this to Paul. He's like questioning Paul. He's getting Paul mad at him. This is not good, Josh. And then it turns out, then it all comes back together, and it's like, well, I'm never gonna turn on Paul. And that's like, no. You were closer before. You keep you're circling around the right answer, but you never land on the right answer. I need you to be able to turn on Paul. It should be final 5, final 4, final 3, whatever it is. Then you'll win the game. It'll all be great. I still think it's a possibility, but it's hard to say.
But Taran, he has to have a willing partner in order to do that. The only real place that he could get Paul out by himself is Final 4. That is the only, and that's if Paul doesn't win HOH, which, by the way, Paul has been telling all of them that he doesn't want to win Final 5 HOH. He's like Steve Moses. He knows which HOHs he should win and why he should win them, because Final 4 HOH obviously gets to play in the Final 3 HOH. You don't have to take a week off, and he knows that's when he's going to be the most vulnerable. So he doesn't want to win Final 5. He wants somebody else to do that. He's already declared to Josh and everybody, like, I can win 6 and 4, but I really don't want to win 6, and I sure as hell don't want to win 5, but I will win 4. And I'm like, Josh, as a super fan, has to recognize what Paul's doing, and not like, if there was a chance that Paul could even, or Josh could even throw HOH to Paul and force him to do something, I think that would be hilarious. But I guess we'll be waiting a while for that. But let me get back to my point. He has to have a willing partner. Christmas has not been listening to anything that Josh is saying. I mean, he's trying, but she seems more annoyed and pissed and bothered at Josh for trying to question Paul than anything. So even if Josh did get HOH at 5 and targeted Paul, he's going to need one more vote to vote out Paul in order to break the tie and send him home. And I don't see anybody on the board right now who would vote out Paul at 5.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It really is a problem. It's a tough spot.
Josh has to be willing to cut bait totally, go to Alex and tell her exactly what's been happening this week. I mean, he literally has to, if he wants to go after Paul and he needs a vote, he needs to go and basically tell Raven that, Paul was in on the plan to get Matt out. Paul was in on the plan to get Jason out. He was lying to you. He wanted you out on the double. You saved yourself. Here's the reason why. Here's what he told us. But it would have to be an all-in move, where he would have to go for it, and he would leave himself really vulnerable if it didn't work.
Here's what I think Josh's game plan should be. I think that move is probably too risky. It probably fails, and then he's probably done. So I think what Josh needs to do is just drop any sort of like questioning Paul. Just be like, Paul, you are amazing. I want to be in the final 2 with you. Like, I'm going to choose you over Christmas, but don't tell Christmas. Like, I am completely on board with you, Paul. Do what Steve Moses did to Vanessa. Get Paul to think that Josh is his little puppy who's going to do what he says. And then anytime he has the opportunity, hope that Paul doesn't win that final 4 HOH. Hope that maybe he wins that veto, at which point he can take Paul out. If not, he has to wait till final 3. But if he's good enough to convince Paul that he should be in the final 3, then he can make that shot at final 3 and then take whoever else is there with them. Obviously, Christmas would be his preference there. But I agree. I just feel like he needs to drop the we need to start questioning Paul. He needs to be fully on board with Paul. And I even think he shouldn't even be talking to Christmas about it anymore, because as much as Christmas doesn't tell Paul everything, she does go to Paul and say, look, Josh was freaking out a little bit last night, but don't worry, I calmed him down. Paul needs to think of Josh as his rock.
I feel like Josh needs to pick a path. He has to pick a path. Like I said, what I said, he's got to be all in. So he's either got to be all in and openly targeting Paul and looking for a vote and telling him exactly what happened, or he's got to do what you're saying, which actually I do prefer, which is to take the Steve Moses route. But I don't know if anybody. I need to think if anybody besides like Alex. And I don't even know if she said it, because she had a ride or die in Jason and she doesn't know he's leaving the house. I guess Raven is the only person at this point who's openly telling Paul, I will take you to the final 2. Has Josh said that to Paul? Because I don't remember him saying that. Everything has been about final 3. We're going to get to the final 3. I feel like if he needs to lay it on a little thicker and tell Paul, I will take you to the final two. I can't wait to go to the final two like boys. We were in it in the beginning all the way through the end. Please don't tell Christmas. I feel like if he does that, that could really do him some good.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think I've seen Josh talk to Paul about a final two explicitly, but like I said, when Paul was talking to us this morning to the cameras, he mentioned that he has a low-key final two deal with Josh. I don't know when that happened, but Paul appears to think that this is something that he has. And again, he talked about Christmas, like, you know what? I might not end up pulling Christmas up to final two with me, implying maybe he actually would pull Josh, which is pretty good for Josh considering he was just openly questioning Paul before. Josh remains to be doing well. I'm seeing in the chat, Mike is telling me that they did have a brief talk yesterday. So I must have missed that. But like I'm saying, Paul was talking about it. So they do have some kind of final two, even though Josh obviously would would take Christmas over Paul, which would be pretty great if Paul went to the final three thinking that was going to happen. And again, this is probably Paul's biggest mistake if he thinks that he can trust Josh here.
I agree, and I think that Paul is not remembering how hard that the final three HOH is, because I think he thinks that he can just win it because he won it last year. He doesn't. I don't think he remembers how much of a crapshoot it was. I think he thinks that final three HOH is like final four and final five, where it's like days comp and what happened when and who did this and what were the votes and HOHs in order and things like that. But this is not Big Brother Canada. This is Big Brother US. And our final three HOH at the end is very much a crapshoot, something that he could lose.
Yeah, and again, this is like the knowledge of the game thing has always been the thing that's gotten in Paul's way. And
that's true.
I completely agree. I think that in the way he's talking about it too, is that he thinks that he can win that guaranteed based on his competition. He doesn't recognize, because he hasn't seen any other season but his own, that this is a crapshoot, that just because you're better at competitions does not mean that you will win that competition.
Right.
The fact that he won, I think, has given him false confidence.
Totally false confidence. I have to tell you, as somebody who's a fan of the show and would love to play in the house someday, that's the one that gives me nightmares, because I mean, kudos to the people like Derek and Andy who've been able to get through it and basically be covered, or take control of it and win it like Steve did. But the final three HOH is always the one where I think, gosh, that would probably be the place where I got cut, because there's really no way you can prepare for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So, I'll buy Josh just because he is basically the best alternative to Paul at this point.
I bought Josh every flipping week for the past 8 weeks, and I will continue to buy him. I do think that Josh is our great hope. And so if Paul doesn't win, I feel like it has to be Josh.
Yes. So let's talk about Christmas, who, again, remains a bit of just this very up and down player. She has great one-on-one conversations, and then she has ridiculous blow-ups at people. It's really hard to tell what will happen in terms of jury votes if she gets there. I don't think she's even playing to win at this point. I've said that I think she just wants Paul and Josh to get to the end. So it's hard to really say that Christmas can win, but I do think it is kind of a possibility. Obviously, it's not necessarily a given that Josh wins the game, even if he does take Christmas, although I do think he probably does. There's a chance they're like, no, why would we vote for Josh? We'll just vote for Christmas. I think Christmas actually has a somewhat halfway decent shot of winning as well, if we're talking about alternatives to Paul.
Yeah, I think she does as well. First of all, is Paul going to pull a Vanessa and be bitter at the person that cut him? So that's one vote that might go away. On the other hand, or add to that, Christmas is actually a very good public speaker. She's very good when she's addressing a mass audience like the jury. I feel like she could be fun and sort of feisty in a way that you enjoy when she's speaking to the jury. Josh is a super fan, but sometimes those people don't even know what to say. They get I remember Steve Moses he had a laundry list of things that he wanted to say, and thank God he eventually cut it down. But sometimes even the best person doesn't know what to say. And I do feel like Christmas, she is a threat to win the game. And how interesting, I think the jury would be like, might as well give it to Christmas because, that would be such a capper for our season. How hilarious would that be? And of course, I kind of agree with them.
Yeah, juries can be hard to predict, and unless it's like a guarantee that there's no way anyone would vote for this person, there's always a possibility that the jury could surprise you and vote for somebody that you weren't necessarily expecting quite as much.
I have a question for you. Is there a way that Paul loses if he gets to the final two? Is there a way?
I think there is. I think there's a chance that he loses. Obviously, we're seeing the jury house obviously respects his game in terms of like, he's controlling the house. They see what he's doing. It's not going to be a matter of like, oh, they didn't see the full extent of Paul's game. They know exactly what's happening, but are they going to like it? Because obviously, and I talked about this when Mark was still in the house, Paul was still trash talking Cody before Mark left. Mark could come back and be like, yeah, Paul is still hung up on you, Cody. And Cody could just be like, you know what? Fine. I'm not going to give him the win then. Like, if that's how he's going to be. There's a very decent chance that this could be a bitter jury. And we could also see them like, you know what? Hey, let's give it to Paul, or let's give it to Josh. Let's give it to Christmas or whatever. The only thing I'm going to say, I don't think there's any chance they ever give it to Raven. As much as they talk about like the sympathy thing, as much as Matt loves Raven, I just feel like Raven is just completely drawing dead.
I agree with you about Josh, that I can see them giving Josh the win over Paul, and there's a little bit of me that wants that, but I also do think it's a realistic possibility. I think Christmas is less of a possibility. I think that if Paul takes Christmas to the end, I think he beats her pretty cleanly, but we'll see.
I don't even think Christmas puts up much of a fight if she gets down there. I don't think she's gonna like call Paul out and be like, "No, you shouldn't vote for Paul." She'll be like, "Yeah, Paul and I got here, and it was a great thing,
team.
and we really killed it."
Yeah, we could take a drink every time she says the word team.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something to watch out for sure. And obviously, if Alex and Jason and all of these people that Paul has betrayed, even Matt, if Matt finds out that Paul turns on Raven, these people could easily be bitter, and it's very hard to manage them when you're not seeing them. So. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm laughing at the chat room because the chat room's like, "Come on, bitter jury, come on."
All right. So, you know what? I've been selling Christmas so much, I feel like I need to counteract it just because she is a possibility. So I'm going to buy Christmas here. But I'm not super high on her chances.
I'm going to also buy Christmas because I do feel like at least she's getting $50,000. Maybe not, and she might end up in third place. But I don't feel like anybody's cutting her.
Yeah, I think she's a lock.
At least until the final three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, if you're a lock for final three and you're not drawing dead with the jury, then you always have a shot at winning.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So then Raven, we've sold on Raven. I just said I think she's drawing dead. I really don't see a situation where Raven wins a jury vote.
I will not totally agree with that. I will feel like that Raven could win if somehow Josh takes out Paul at the final three and then Raven wins final HOH and takes Christmas to the end. I do feel like there's a way that Raven could beat Christmas in a final two vote, and that would be freaking hilarious. I would love to see people lose their freaking minds.
You know what? Now that you say that, I think that is a scenario where that could happen because obviously Paul goes out. And then she takes out Josh. Christmas looks like she's done basically nothing. Paul is probably pretty mad at Josh and by extension, maybe Christmas. And he probably campaigns for Raven at that point, at which point she's got Paul campaigning. He'll probably flip Alex and Jason over. She's got Matt. Man, that's a feasible scenario, I think.
You know, Wendy in the chat says, I wish Brent would do the backyard interviews. And I have to say that my schedule is clean. I have nothing better to do, and I can get myself to Los Angeles. So, give me a microphone that has rap on it, and I'm there. I'm so there for this.
So, Alex, you said that if Kevin went to the jury house and tried to turn the jury against you, that America was going to hate him. How does it feel knowing America hates you?
Yes, that's exactly what I would do, and it would be fun to see the face crack of the century. I would love it, and I would also like reading Matt the Riot Act. Letting him know what I think what the fans. Matt? What do you think about the fans who have said that you disrespected the game by continuing to eat as a have-not, and you did nothing in the game all season long, and you were basically a disappointment of a house guest?
What?
What? What are you talking about? What? I love the llama. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. So that's the stock watch for this week. Man, I really wish Brent needs like a surrogate that can go in that won't represent RHAP, that can just like say anything they want. Houseguest. Somebody needs to volunteer.
You know what I need to do is like there was a poker player one time, Phil Locke, who played in the World Series of Poker, and he dressed him. He got all the makeup. He had a professional like makeup artist do him up as like an old man because he didn't want people to know that he was the guy, like a young buck who's willing to bluff. He wanted to have the image of an old man. That's what I should do. I should get somebody to like change my appearance and go to the backyard as like a nice, respectful person, and then just read him the riot act. It would be great.
Yeah, I could make a joke right now, but I'm not. Okay, so let's get into some questions here. Starting with Stephen Callahan, who asks, who's coming back for All-Stars? Just kidding. Where does Alex rank in terms of being one of the most delusional players of all time?
I mean, boy, she's up there. I mean, she really is. I like I said, I have seen 19 seasons of Big Brother. I mean, we'll count the first one, but whatever. I just I don't understand her thinking. I generally can understand people's thinking. I mean, I understand Raven's thinking. I'm gonna keep mixing up generally and genuinely. She has genuinely been the center of attention for most of her life. So when she goes in a house and is in a public place where everybody can hear what she's saying, I sort of understand why she's just continuing her lies about the things that are in her life, because she's probably doing that in her real life as well and has never been called on it before. So I get what Raven's tack is. I don't understand Alex. She just... somewhere along the line, she saw Big Brother last season and thinks that Paul owns a bunch of restaurants that have the name Friendship. And she thinks it's a franchise. She thinks that she could buy one. And she thinks that there's nothing that Paul could do to turn his back on Friendship. Whatever that means. Again, I retweeted, Melissa on this podcast famously said, when Alex was talking about, Paul can't go against Friendship. What does that even mean? I mean, I retweeted that myself when I was watching her like a few days ago, because it's just incredulous. So to answer the question, I mean, she's in like top 5 for me. I don't even know who else is up there. I just know that Big Brother is a show with a lot of longevity, and thus there have been other crazy delusional people in the house, but Alex really takes the cake for me.
Yeah, I like this idea of Paul's restaurant chain of Friendship, where he probably serves muffins and French fries. It's I guess it's believable. But yeah, thinking about it, it's really hard to come up with players that are worse than Alex. I mean, I've mentioned the Natalie from Big Brother 11 comparison. I really feel like that's probably the closest that we can get. We talk about like worst players, maybe like Raul from Big Brother Canada 3, maybe even worse than Alex, but man, they're pretty close at this point. So she's really, really far down there. Like, she's just like so bad. And I think it's even worse because she's so good at competitions, right? Like that makes it even worse, because it means that you're not even going to skate by not being a threat. You are a threat, and you're playing terribly, and you're like, it's insane.
Well, just to bring a little levity to the situation, you bring up Natalie from Big Brother 11. By the way, I was listening on the podcast when you mixed up Big Brother 11 and 12, and I do that all the time, and I was so thrilled to hear that when you did that, I actually rewound my... just to make sure I heard what I thought I heard, and I was like, oh my God, he did it too. Okay, so what I was going to say, my favorite moment of Natalie...
into my mind.
Okay, that's what happened. We'll go with that. My favorite moment of Natalie was at the final 3, part 2, HOH. She loses to Jordan. Her balls keep going in the wrong holes, and then she keeps repeating the same mistake all the way down. And Julie says, Natalie, what does it feel like now to have your fate not in your own hands? And Natalie's like, well, Julie, it's very disappointing because I am a competitor and I pride myself, and this was a mental competition. And Julie just totally cuts her off and says, it was mental and physical, so that's too bad. Thank you, Houseguest. And it's just like, it's freaking awesome. If you guys haven't watched that, you have to.
Yes, hopefully we'll get a similar interview with Alex.
With Alex, yes.
Also,
there, Alex. Yes.
I'll point out right after you got done with your rant about how pleased you were that I messed up Big Brother 12 and 11, somebody kindly pointed out that I said Rahul was on Big Brother Canada 3, and he was in fact on Big Brother Canada 4. So I'm doing great here. I'm doing great.
Doing great. Yes. Fun stuff. You know what the funny part is? I just made a mistake of my own because when you said Rahul was on Big Brother Canada 3, I was like, yeah, he's on Big Brother Canada 5. Look, and I'm thinking about that crazy ass William. Oh my God. Yeah.
It's very easy to mix up your numbers and names. If Alex can vote for the wrong person, then certainly we can say the wrong numbers and names all the time. All right. So we have another question from the Survivor guy. Is Paul dismissing Josh about using the veto comparable to Paulie dismissing Paul about the Zakiya vote last season? Do you see any resemblance there, Brent?
No, because the whole thing with Zakiya was that had some validity to it as far as, you know, like them dismissing it. I feel like that that this thing with Josh, I mean, like, Josh, I'm with you. Paul's definitely up to something, but your plan was freaking terrible. Like, I mean, Paul's plan was the best plan. And I feel like that Paul, you really can't blame him because I'm glad you also noticed, Taran, that Paul did his normal, well, I could not use the veto. I mean, like, that's a possibility as well. And Josh said no, with his Josh being passive aggressive like he's been lately. And then, you know, an hour later, Josh came back to him and said, okay, I don't want you to use the veto. I think it's a terrible idea. And Paul's like, nope, not going to do it. Like, I mean, it was just fake. I mean, Paul offered like an hour beforehand. I don't have to use the veto if you don't want me to. And now, like, Josh is actually pushing back against him. So everything that has worked with everybody else all season long, all of a sudden doesn't work with somebody like Josh. I don't feel like Paul handled it great because, as you guys pointed out with Lita, that it's not a great look when you're telling somebody, just play dumb. That's what you're best at, okay? That's freaking terrible to say. But luckily, it seems like Josh has not reacted in a really terrible way for it, although Paul might be wishing he handled it differently at the final 3.
All right, so we have another question from Gonzalo Palma on Twitter who asks, assuming Jason goes this week, rank the final 6 in their chances of winning the game. You can probably intuit this from our stock watch, but I figured we'd lay it out for you. So Brent, if you need time to think about this, I can start.
Well, I was going to say, can we just go with? Let me ask this just for the sake of clarity and for maybe a little bit of different of opinion from the stock watch. Can we at least take it from the point of view that if they made it to the final 2, we're listening at all 6 people, who is the most likely to win if they make it to the final 2? Or did you want to go with they've got to get to the final 2 to, because that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Well, I think it's more valuable to say they got to get there and win.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So most likely to win, so you go ahead and I'll think. Sorry.
All right, so yeah, obviously Paul has the best shot right now. I do think Josh is second there, then probably Christmas, and then I think actually, like I said, I think Kevin has a very outside shot here, and then man, it's hard between Raven and I'd say Raven and then Alex at that point, because even if Alex does make to the end, I guess if she comps her way out, maybe she gets some votes that way. So maybe I'd put Alex ahead of Raven. I don't know, it's hard.
Alex has to comp her way out, and I don't even know if she's willing to do that. She might even be stupid enough, like she did this week, where throw the veto to Paul, and so that they both can be safe, and then she, of course, would go home in that instance. So I don't have any confidence in her ability to do that. I would probably switch Raven and Kevin. I would put Raven at number 4. Raven's actually a close 4. I would put Raven closer to 3, actually, because I do feel like there's a way that she can get to the end. But on the other hand, I feel like she has to get to the end with Josh or Christmas to even have a shot of winning. If she does what she wants, if she does what she has been saying she's going to do, which is take Paul to the end, obviously that's a total disaster. If she wakes up and smells the coffee, and this is the part in the game where a lot of people do now that the money is starting to become real, and she really needs the money. That's the other thing I like about Raven, is that, say what you want about her, it's the money, and she'll do anything to get it. So I'm hoping that her natural, even if she is a terrible player, I'm hoping her natural greed kicks in for the money and that she makes the decision that she needs to and cut Paul if she has the chance.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a bad player, be a greedy bad player.
Thank you.
Don't be a selfless bad player.
Yes, we hate selfless bad players. Hello, Matt.
Yeah. All right. So another question from PMK on Twitter asks, if Christmas was able to compete in a foot race, shouldn't she be able to compete in the rest of the competitions? Foot can be wet now. So we've been talking all season long. Is Christmas automatically going to be disqualified in those first two of the final three HOH competitions? But it seems as though, like, what competitions can't she compete in at this point, especially if they can wrap the boot or if it can get wet at this point?
Look, I think there's no way that they can, like, liability speaking wise, have her up on a wall or on anything where she would fall onto the mat, even if they can get her wet. And I did see that she can get wet now, so that's actually good for her chances of being able to compete. But she can't fall on the foot, so there's no way that they're going to let her do that. Now, look, if they make a call and they somehow think it's okay for her to fall on a very soft, cushy mat, and that's going to be okay, and just, I mean, I guess, because they let her do this sprinting competition. But it says here that the only reason they let her do the sprinting competition is because they knew, in essence, they knew what was behind the curtain. They knew what was going to happen, most likely, in this competition, that everyone was going to throw it. That's why they let Christmas compete. I think if Paul had not orchestrated this whole you guys have to throw the competition, if he had not orchestrated that, says here they would not have allowed her to compete in that competition for fear of re-injuring her foot if she actually decided to, like, put some weight on it to try to get to the end of her lane. And I'm no one's going to be able to tell me different. I think that's what happened.
I see. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that, like, even with everyone throwing it, there was still a large chance that they were going to do at least 1 or 2 rounds. And then we saw, like, even after she finished, she hopped over to the buttons. Like, it wasn't like a situation that they couldn't put her in because it was far too dangerous no matter what she did. I feel like they're at the point where they want to put her in every competition they can, even if she'll obviously lose it. But I do agree that she probably cannot compete in competitions where she'll fall. That's probably where they draw the line. But I think she would have been able to compete regardless of the throwing plan.
I mean, it depends on what she's signed. I mean, if she's like willing to take the risk and they say, look, we don't really want to let you do this competition, but if you're willing to do it and you're going to fall, at least fall the correct way, but you're liable for it if you decide to go through with it. I mean, that's what they would, I don't know if they would say. I don't know how the legalese works for this because we've never had to deal with this situation before, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah, and like I mean, talking about American Ninja Warrior, they let injured athletes run all the time. People have injured themselves on the course, and they allow them to continue. People have, like, injuries, or people have just come back from surgery, and they allow them to run the course. So it's not like it's impossible for there to be something that they can sign that allows something like this to happen. That said, I do think they would refrain from something where she can fall. So I do think they'll probably discount her from that first competition where it's probably going to be endurance. It'll be a one-on-one kind of situation. But if we think about it, the next competition is often one that they're climbing up on the wall and doing some sort of puzzle, right?
Right, or in, like, they could do the water tank one where she could do. But if there's any sort of, like, if it's Big Brother 10 where you have to run and, like, bat down the house guests, I guess she could do something like that, but again, we're in uncharted territory here.
Yeah, I think they would love to have that big wall competition where they've got, like, belays and they're climbing up the wall. I think they would love to show that with her on one foot, competing in that competition. I think they would think that's great television. I think she
could actually win that competition.
Yeah. Exactly, and that would make for a great moment. I think there's a pretty decent chance that she will be able to compete at least in one of these competitions, and I mean, that's something that we thought was going to be impossible for a while. So
let me ask this.
Yeah,
I asked before about a few other people. What about Christmas? let's assume that let's say it's the hanging suspended wall comp, and she actually beats Josh, who's a big boy and may suffer at a competition like that. If she makes it to the final 3 and wins part 3, which is basically A or B every time, who does she take to the final 2? Does she take Paul, who she adores, or does she take Josh, her pet in the game, and a guy that she really, really likes, even though he has been annoying her the last 2 days?
You know, I think like immediate logic says probably Josh. But you know, she is very close with Paul. She had a very long, like, one-on-one with him this morning in the early hours of the morning. I don't think it's impossible that she takes Paul either. And like I said, I really don't think that she is like very self-interested in this game. So even though I do think she plans on taking Josh, I think that's the most likely outcome. I would not count her out of the idea that she might take Paul.
That would be terrible. Oh, that would be terrible. Oh well. Oh well. Yeah, I guess. And she's more worried about Instagram followers. She knows Paul is, supposedly popular. People like him. People liked him last season. But on the other hand, Josh is a family. I don't want to say a family man. He's a mama's boy. But he wants the money, and he comes from good people. And I'm hoping that she would take him to the end. That would be more fun.
Yes. All right. So that's our roundtable / one-on-one for the night.
Sorry, one more
Brent,
thing I wanted to add really quickly. I did make a mistake. Actually, we received an answer. I know, shocking. I made a mistake. Oh my God. When I said last night that what Josh should do is just shut up in the house and just fix it in the goodbye messages. Like tell people in the goodbye messages what really happened. And I said to Rob last night that when they get the little disc of the house guests, that everything that happened in the week, that all of their goodbye messages in full length are on there. I was wrong. That is not what happens. Brendan tweeted us, Brendan and Viegas, obviously Mr. Rachel Riley, said that all the house guests see are what they see when they're on stage with Julie Chen. So whatever Josh wants to say in his goodbye message, first of all, they may not show it. On the other hand, there's only 7 people left in the game, so 6 goodbye messages. They're probably going to show Josh. If he can just bathe it in Paul truth bombs, I feel like then he might actually get something out of it. But there's no guarantee the house guests are going to see what Josh says, so that's a bit of a downer.
Yeah, I think it is actually important to point out that Josh is trying to do some jury management work here, and I think this was part of it. He went to Jason and was like, "Look, I'm going to tell you something. You have to keep this secret. You cannot tell anyone." And this is like the 3rd time he's done this in the house. He's like, "There's this huge secret. You can't tell anyone." He's like, "Oh my God, what is it?" It's like, "I am actually a big fan of this show," and Jason was like, "Yeah, I knew that." It's like, no, a big fan, like a super fan. He's like, yeah, I already knew you were a super fan. I thought that was the case.
Well, but nobody else knows though. So I don't know how you knew, Taran.
Right. Like Josh, like I think part of it is that like nobody in that house is a true like super fan anymore. So like the fact that Josh knows anything, they're like, oh yeah, he's the super fan. But he really feels like he's keeping this a secret, and he feels like telling people, I think, will help him in the jury. And I think that he plans like a big reveal for like his final 2 speech, like secretly I was a super fan all along, and they're gonna be like, yeah.
They're going to be like, yeah. But I think it's sort of funny because Josh feels like he has this big, giant secret, and they're like, what? And he's like, I'm a super fan. And they're like, yeah, we know. He's like, well, how do you know? I didn't tell you. Did somebody tell you? How do you know?
Yeah, and somebody's pointing out, like, they're pretty sure Josh is the one that told Jason weeks ago. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Kennedy in the chat says it's like when Bronte said she was a mathematician. It very much is. Yeah.
Yes, that's the same exact mic drop. It's like what did she say? Did she say I'm a mathmatician? Is that what she said?
I'm like a secret nerd or a secret mathematician.
Or a secret nerd. I'm a nerd. Oh my God.
I secretly love math. Oh man. All right, so let me know in the chat if you have any ideas for a hashtag. Brent, let me know if you have any ideas as well. Of course,
I thought of one, but we can't use it. Somebody in the chat room earlier said when we were in the stock watch, they were like, "Sell Kidwell too soon." I feel like Alex would appreciate that though.
Yes,
So, yeah.
yes. All right. So again, make sure you check out American Ninja Warrior. Watch me on TV, and then check out the podcast. We've got lots of fun stuff for you with that. And again, you can check this out starting from the Vegas finals. You can start fresh from here. There's nothing that you will like be missing out on if you miss the qualifiers. This is like an entirely new round, and this is the most exciting part because you'll get to watch me. So, yeah.
Yes, I watch this. This is what I watch American Ninja for every year is the Vegas finals. It's very, very fun stuff. And there's no, making it to the nearest obstacle in the fastest time. You've got to hit the buzzer or you're out. And that's the best part of it.
Yes. So very, very fun. And I'm probably looking like a very silly person in the crowd. Like, I
can only hope that we get such a great GIF, and it's pronounced GIF, that we got last time when you were in the crowd and they edited you to be massively applauding at someone, but then you later told me that you were not applauding for that guy. You were actually applauding for somebody else, and they just made it look like that.
Yep. That's pretty much how it went. I'm seeing hashtag backyard Brent. I love it.
I'm all in for that. I mean, I never even thought about that before tonight, but I'm like, you know what? I quit my job because we moved. I'm at my mom's house tonight. By the way, if you don't recognize the background, this is my mom's house. My internet is not working over at my house tonight, even though I just had it installed like 3 days ago. And of course, being Labor Day, no one's around to fix it. So I had to come over here to get access. Otherwise, it was just going to be like the Taran show tonight. Oh my God, can you imagine? I know, right?
A roundtable by myself. Yeah.
I mean, Rob does a really great job on the backyard interviews, but if he's busy, then perhaps there's a spot for moi.
All right.
Or if you want to do it, you're like the number 2 now. So if you want to do it, you could do it. But then if you cry, basically if I'm if nobody else wants to do it.
If I can't fly out to LA, yeah.
Yes.
All right. So make sure you check out the Taran show tomorrow. I'll be dropping that episode tonight. I talked with Aubrey Bracco, had a really interesting conversation with her. Actually had a weird coincidence. We actually interned at the same newspaper in New Hampshire. It was very strange. But she talked all about her very weird experience on Survivor, having like a year break in between when she was on and when the season finally airs. She has a lot of, she just stopped, really. It just stopped for her because Game Changers was very recently ended. So really, really interesting stuff with Aubrey. Make sure you check it out. I would love to hear. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I would love to hear that interview because I hope that she even speaks. It was so great to hear her. She talked a little bit with Rob when she did like a deep dive with Rob, and I really love what she had to say about the weird position that she was in at the end of her first season, where basically all the super fans were like, "It should have been you," and she had to be really gracious about it, and she didn't want to hurt Michelle's feelings, but it should have been her, but she also doesn't want to take anything away from Michelle. So, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, that kind of, situation. And she handled it so gracefully. So I can't wait to hear what she said on this interview. Yeah, she actually talked a lot about that. And like how that affects. I've talked to a lot of people about like internet hate and controversy and all that stuff. And I feel like she is one of the people who has experienced the most amount of that that I've talked to. So she had a lot of interesting takes on it. Make sure you check that out. And of course, check out the live feed update tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, where we will update you everything that's happening on the feeds. I'm going to be talking to Liana, so make sure you check that one out. And we're going to be talking to Donnie Thompson Wednesday night to recap the veto episode of Big Brother. So lots and lots of fun stuff headed your way. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Armstrong Taran. Brent is at One Lucky Gay. So for Brent and me, I am Taran Armstrong. Hashtag Backyard Brent. We will see you next time.